What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, guys, so we are basically going to do The Way of X. Yes, you heard that right, The Way of X. This is basically a book that Marvel released, of course, in the Reign of X era of X-Men comics, where they kind of ask you a question. What if the X-Men had a religion? Because that right there would be something very important to actually think about. If the X-Men are trying to build a nation for themselves, an island where all mutants are basically accepted, they're trying to move away from the human ways and begin a new path for mutants. Do they have an actual religion? Do they actually believe in a god? And so with that is basically Marvel saying, would the X-Men actually have a religion? And if they do, what would that religion be? And of course, the character to kind of use as a way to kind of figure out what the religion would actually be is Nightcrawler. Because remember, when it comes to Nightcrawler, he's a very religious person, but of course, he's more Christian-like. But now the question is, will he leave behind what he believes in to start something new on the island? There's a lot of different questions being asked for this one particular book. And really, the opening pages of this book really makes you think a whole lot more that basically there is a lot of things happening behind the scenes. And what I mean by that statement is that basically, you have Charles Xavier wake up from what seems to be a nightmare. Now, something in that nightmare basically calls Charles Xavier a betrayer. Like, basically, Charles Xavier had betrayed somebody. Now, of course, as soon as he wakes up, he does call up Nightcrawler. Now, when it comes to Charles Xavier, he looks at Nightcrawler kind of like a very close friend, an ally. But of course, it's right now Charles Xavier asking Nightcrawler to talk, because right now is Charles Xavier worried about a lot of different things. But of course, unfortunately for Charles Xavier, Nightcrawler can't talk right now, because right now you have Nightcrawler on a special mission. And of course, that mission takes him over to Venice. And so right now you have Nightcrawler telling Charles Xavier, we can talk as soon as I get back to COPPA. Now, we actually do learn what's happening right now with Nightcrawler and his team in Venice, because we do pick up with some characters who are basically tagging along with Nightcrawler. Now, of course, some of these characters have not died yet in the new era of COPPA. Because remember, when it comes to COPPA, if you die, if you're a mutant, you have a way to come back to life, because the five mutants have the ability to create you a new body and download your memories into that new clone body. Now, with all that being said, the reason why I'm bringing this up right now because Pixie is a character who has not actually died yet in this era of X-Men comics. And so she's kind of afraid that maybe she'll come back different. Now, of course, that is the moment you have Nightcrawler reappear in the room to kind of give us more information about this mission that him and the rest of the characters are on. And basically what's happening right now is that in Venice, there's basically a base that belongs to Orchis. Now remember, Orchis is basically the new evil organization that wants to kill off the mutant race. Here comes the big problem though with all that information right there. Orchis is also made up of different people from different companies who also hate mutants as well. So you have some people from Hydra, some people from AIM, some people possibly from SHIELD, and the list goes on and on. But those people came together to form Orchis. But the place that Nightcrawler and his crew are in right now, it is basically a hate museum, as a way to kind of get everyone to hate mutants even more, to feed on that anger, or to give them more anger towards the mutant race. And so, of course, it's Nightcrawler and his team realizing what they have to do. Now, of course, this does actually lead into a battle between Nightcrawler and his team fighting against the members of Orchis at this place. But while you have the two sides fighting against one another, basically right now, you have to realize Nightcrawler and his team, they were not made to attack this group of people, this group of Orchis. Instead, they were basically formed together to come here, gather intel, and then get the heck out of there. And so right now, it's Nightcrawler trying to leave to get somewhere safe. The problem is, though, as he's trying to get out of there and tell his team to go, Pixie wants to actually die. Because remember what I said earlier, Pixie never died in this new era of X-Men comics. And so she's very afraid that if she dies, she may come back to life different. But of course, she's also kind of wanting to see what happens to her because some of the other characters on this team kind of picked on her for not actually dying yet. And so you have Pixie actually go up to a soldier to kind of make that soldier actually shoot her head off, which he does. But as a way to say she's no longer afraid of dying because she can honestly come back to life just like that. But for Nightcrawler, he's kind of like, what the mess is happening? Like you just let this guy shoot your head off? Why? But again, it's Nightcrawler not realizing that this new generation of mutants and really his own generation of mutants are no longer scared of dying because now you have the possibility to come back to life. But for Nightcrawler to kind of have that idea in your head and not be scared of dying and just going out there and letting folks shoot your head off because you know you'll be brought back to life, he thinks it kind of reckless. It's Nightcrawler saying this is very reckless. Now, you do have Nightcrawler actually go over to Magneto. Now, the reason why, because in that Hate Museum, it basically had different figures of mutants who done bad things over the years. So like Omega Red, Apocalypse, and especially Magneto. And so with that place being a Hate Museum, of course, there are probably different statues to show how bad Magneto was to the world. And Nightcrawler kind of used this moment to show Magneto a basically statue that was made by Orchis to show him as a bad guy. But of course, the statue looks so ridiculous that when Nightcrawler surprised Magneto with the statue, they're at the bar and everybody's just laughing at Magneto. Now, you do have Magneto kind of turn this moment as a way to kind of give a sermon, because what Magneto says is that basically that statue shows the past where it was basically mutants versus mutants. And we saw that so many times in the older X-Men comics, but it's now Magneto saying, and look where we are now. We have an island where mutants are here together. We can actually work together. And so with that, you have Magneto saying, you may laugh at this statue, but this statue shows where we came from. Now, after that, you have Nightcrawler kind of get upset with what Magneto did back there by basically taking Nightcrawler's joke and turning it into a sermon. But it's also Magneto and Nightcrawler having issues over the idea that Nightcrawler feels like that maybe we should have some kind of religion on the island. But the problem is, though, Nightcrawler does not want to let go of his religion. Because remember, Nightcrawler is a Christian. He does not want to let that go. And so, of course, he's kind of like, I can't go through the whole process of building a religion over the one I care for the most. But also you have Magneto kind of really talk down to the idea of God for Nightcrawler, because what Magneto says is, you talk about your God, your Jesus, all of that right there. But basically everything Jesus has done, like resurrection, we have also done here on the island as well. And so you have Magneto say, why do we need a God when we as mutants are playing as gods? There's no need for a God here. There's no need for a religion. But it's Nightcrawler feeling like a religion would basically kind of help keep things in order on the island. Now, you do have Nightcrawler actually run into a particular mutant that basically says that they are lost. Now, that's all they can say. And of course, the question is, what is the big deal with this mutant? And honestly, we will not learn more about this mutant until down the road. But for right now, it's basically Nightcrawler meeting this mutant. Basically, this mutant says, I'm lost. And you have Nightcrawler say, hey, I cannot help you right now, because he was trying to have a conversation with Magneto still. And so basically, this mutant is just standing there lost and confused and has to leave. Now, later on that night, you do have Nightcrawler being able to find the character known as Exodus. Now, Exodus has been around since the 1990s for Marvel Comics and X-Men comics. Now, in the older books that we have done, basically for, House of X, Power of X, Dawn of X, and now Reign of X, including X of Swords, Exodus was kind of like this quiet preacher. And what I mean is that basically what Exodus would do is that he would go and find children and kind of spread the words of what he believes about mutants or the Crucible or something he actually believes in. And so right now we're having him kind of talking to the children and trying to give them a better understanding about the Crucible, like why is it so important? And basically it's a way for a mutant to come back to life as a mutant, because some mutants on COPPA don't have their powers. And the reason why, because remember, House of M still happened in this universe. House of M with the Scarlet Witch basically wiped out a lot of mutant powers. Now, most of those mutants got their powers back, but some did not. And so the Crucible is a way for a mutant to die but come back to life with their powers. And so basically it's Exodus kind of having this conversation with kids. But as he's doing that, of course, one of the kids do bring up a character known as the Patch Man. And of course, it kind of freaks out Exodus. He's kind of like, who in the world is the Patch Man? Or Patchwork, sorry, the Patchwork Man. Now, that is the moment where you do have Nightcrawler actually run into a character known as Dr. Nemesis. Now, Dr. Nemesis has been around for a good period of time in X-Men comics, but basically Dr. Nemesis' mutant ability is that he's basically one of the best scientists in the world. Like, it basically gave him the ability to understand science better. And matter of fact, Dr. Nemesis has been around since like 1906. Yes, that was when he was born. And his father actually created the first Sentinel. And thanks to, I want to say, Dr. Nemesis like being so good at science, that he was kind of able to make different things to keep him alive for so long. But either way though, the reason why Dr. Nemesis is here is because basically he's a man of science. And as we know, in the real world, it's kind of always like science versus religion. Like, if someone gets sick, they believe that the religion is basically going to save their lives. But then in some cases, you have people believe that it's better to go ahead and just let science do the work to save their lives. And you also had a third group that believe in both areas, science and also religion, where basically you have folks who are very religious believe that their God gave them science to basically help them to survive. But of course, the first two factors are really more important, because you always have science versus religion. And let me tell you right now, living in America, I have seen that so many times in so many different aspects. Now, with all that being said though, this is Dr. Nemesis right now kind of pointing out and saying, how can you believe in a God that we have not seen? Because this has been one of the biggest arguments in really the world, but especially in America. Again, I live in America. And so with that being said, you actually have Dr. Nemesis say, you believe in a God that you have not seen, but you have fought other kinds of gods over the years. These powerful beings from outer space who you believe to be just aliens, but in reality, these are folks who are basically gods. Thor is actually a god. But on top of that as well too, you fought godly beings who could wipe out a universe, wipe out the multiverse, wipe out our planet. Basically, you have been fighting gods all your life, but the one God you believe in, you cannot even get a trace of him. And so again, this is one of those biggest arguments that you see in the real world right now being put in a book with a character that believes in God. And so it's really kind of like, can you actually believe in God? And if you do, why? And where's your proof that he actually exists? Because you, my dear friend, have fought gods before throughout your whole entire life being an X-Men character. Now, this does lead into the Crucible. And the reason why, because you do have Dr. Nemesis and Nightcrawler actually walk over to the Crucible match, where of course is right now Magneto versus the mutant that basically Nightcrawler saw earlier. Yes, remember, there was a mutant that basically wanted help from Nightcrawler, but the mutant said that she was lost. But in reality, she wasn't lost. She wanted Nightcrawler's help because when it came to the Crucible, she had the right to basically choose who was going to kill her. And she wanted Nightcrawler because Nightcrawler is a more friendly person, and he would have ended this match so quickly for her that basically it would not go on as long as it is right now with Magneto, because you have Magneto slowly killing this mutant off. And so right now she's kind of like, I wanted you, but you sent me away, and now I'm in this ring with Magneto, who's basically torturing me as a way to kill me slowly. And so right now it's just Magneto just being a jerk by not going ahead and killing her off, but slowly killing her off. Now, of course, as she dies, you have Nightcrawler get more upset. And the reason why, because he feels like the Crucible is the main reason why we need a religion on COPPA, because right after she dies, the entire crowd cheers. Now, of course, again, the Crucible was a way for a mutant to basically get their powers back if they lost their powers in House of M and never got their powers back like most mutants did. And when it comes to this character right here, Sister Lost, that's her name, basically what happened was she can stretch her body, but while her body was stretching, that was when her powers basically disappeared. And so ever since House of M, her body has been like that, just kind of disfigured. But of course, now she's killed off. When she's brought back to life, she'll have the ability to control her long shifting body. Now, with all that being said, though, it's Nightcrawler saying he has no idea if the crowd is cheering with the idea that she'll now get her powers back, or they're cheering because she just died and they love murder. Now, you do have Nightcrawler kind of go to where the Five is at, because remember, the Five have the ability to bring anyone back to life. Now, when I say that, I really mean they make you a new clone body and download your memories into that new clone body. But basically what happened is that right now you have the Five bringing back that mutant that had died in the Crucible match. Now, of course, this is where we kind of learn a tad bit more about her powers. So yes, her body can stretch, but on top of that, she also can play with gravity, where of course it does kind of make you a tad bit sick. But either way, that's the moment you have Pixie appear. Now, this is actually very important because Pixie died earlier in this video in Way of X #1. And matter of fact, we're still in Way of X #1. But either way, though, you do have Pixie being brought back to life. Because remember, when Nightcrawler and his team went on that mission, she died. Now, it wasn't because she died because she was not watching her back. She died because she was being reckless. And the reason why, because while on that mission, the other fellow members on that mission made fun of her for being scared to die. Because with the X-Men having the ability to bring someone back to life, you now have a lot of characters just being reckless. Because they're kind of like, even if I die on this mission, on this trip or whatever, I don't have to worry because we can basically be brought back to life. We found a way to cheat death. And so, of course, Pixie on the last mission was kind of like, yeah, my friends are right. Why in the world should I be scared to die? And so basically, she went to a guard and got her head shot off. But of course, now she's been brought back to life, and it's Nightcrawler kind of wondering where her mind is at. But right now, she really does not want to talk to Nightcrawler at all. But on top of that, it's her kind of moving away from what Nightcrawler believed and more of kind of believing the idea that why should we be scared if we have the ability to basically come back to life? Now, that is the moment you have Charles Xavier actually give Nightcrawler a mission. And this mission is to find the Patchwork Man. Now, of course, the Patchwork Man is somebody that Charles Xavier truly cares for and actually knows very well because that person is very close to him. And so with that being said, it's basically Charles saying, hey, Nightcrawler, I want you to go find this person, the Patchwork Man, because you and I both know who it is. Now, Nightcrawler does go to a graveyard site. Now, this graveyard site he goes to, of course, he goes to a particular grave. And that grave is Ruth Aldine. And Ruth Aldine was basically Blindfold, a character that appeared back in the early 2000s and a character that Nightcrawler kind of cares for. But also, Blindfold was a mutant. She was a mutant. And matter of fact, when she died, she still was a mutant. But here's the thing though. She has not been brought back to life yet. Now, of course, this is kind of Nightcrawler saying the reason why, because basically there's a whole long list of people who still need to be brought back to life. It's still a very difficult process to bring back every mutant that have basically died over the years. But of course, while he's there, he's basically attacked by somebody. And of course, that somebody is Legion. Because remember, Legion is the son of Charles Xavier. But on top of that as well, is Legion saying, I knew my father would send you and not come himself, because basically you're a better person than he is because you can actually talk to people. Now, this leads into Way of X number 2, where of course we continue the conversation between Nightcrawler and also Legion. Now, if you're new to X-Men comics, basically Legion is the son of Charles Xavier. On top of the idea that Legion is also a character who has multiple personalities all in one body, and so that's why he's kind of called Legion, but also that each personality has their own power. Now, the reason why basically Charles Xavier thought that the Patch Man was also Legion is because, well, the idea that Legion has a bunch of different personalities. But of course, you have Legion say, no, I'm not the Patch Man at all. But I'm kind of here to basically help you out, to help you figure out who is the Patch Man. Who is the Patch Man going around and playing with the minds of different characters like Charles Xavier, or even possibly Pixie as well. And so, of course, you do have Legion actually go inside the mind of Nightcrawler. Now, what you have Legion actually do to prove that he's not the Patch Man worker, that he actually goes into the mind of Nightcrawler. Now, when he does go into the mind of Nightcrawler, this is kind of Marvel kind of telling us or reminding us that when it comes to Nightcrawler, he has a huge thing for pirates. And that has been a thing for a very long time. Like, if you read old X-Men comics, all the way up to now, he had that pirate theme for a very long time. And matter of fact, I want to say even in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, there was a brief moment where Nightcrawler had a pirate themed Danger Room training. I could be wrong because I have not read Ultimate X-Men in about a couple years now. Once I finish it for the channel, I have not touched Ultimate X-Men again in a very long time. So I could be wrong on that part. But the whole pirate thing for the main Marvel Universe Nightcrawler, yeah, that part's true. But either way, though, you do have Legion come out of the mind of Nightcrawler and say, look, somebody has basically been playing with your mind, and I basically took their little bug out of your mind, so now you owe me, because now you are able to freely work. But of course, you need to find my body, because something bad could possibly happen to my body, where of course it could destroy a lot of things, not just on Earth, but possibly the entire universe. Now, we do jump over to the bar that basically belongs to Blob, and of course it's the bar that everybody goes to on COPPA. Now, with that being said, you have Nightcrawler on his way there, but before Nightcrawler actually gets there, of course we do pick up again with Dr. Nemesis, but also Fabian Cortez. Now remember, in the Sword book, Fabian Cortez got fired from Sword, basically got fired, and also he tried to change a law, and one of the laws on COPPA is that basically mutants are not allowed to kill humans. And so, of course, he tried to change that law because how bad humans done mutants over the years. But either way, he was fired and basically sent away from Sword. And so he's kind of just stuck on COPPA. Now, with that all being said right there, you do have Dr. Nemesis kind of talking to him about different things, like, you know, why Fabian Cortez did mess up and why Fabian Cortez got replaced. But it also does lead into the idea that you have Nightcrawler appearing and asking Dr. Nemesis for help, because we come to find out that basically there was an entire year that basically Charles Xavier had Dr. Nemesis keep Legion in a coma, or sedated, so that basically Legion powers would not go crazy. But of course, it's Nightcrawler once again asking for Dr. Nemesis help because he knows there could be a possibility that Dr. Nemesis could actually help him deal with the problem of Legions right now in his body. Now, the next character is also Pixie. Now, Pixie has some tie-ins with Legion as well, and of course, I will explain those tie-ins very soon. But either way, you have Nightcrawler go to Pixie because Pixie is also somebody else that basically needs to be there to help Nightcrawler help Legion's body, not destroying the entire universe possibly. Now, of course, while Nightcrawler is trying to go and get Pixie and leave, he does run into the character we saw earlier, and I'm going to call her Sister Lost because right now I forgot her name, but basically she does run into Nightcrawler at the bar, and you do have Nightcrawler try to apologize, but because right now he's on crunch time to basically stop the body of Legion from doing something really bad, he has to leave in a hurry, and so he does grab Pixie and they do leave. Now, as soon as Nightcrawler and Pixie leave, we do see a Patch Man once again kind of right behind Fabian Cortez and trying to do something with Fabian Cortez, but then instantly leaves. But of course, again, we have no idea who is this Patch Man worker. Now, you do have Nightcrawler take Dr. Nemesis and also Pixie to Saudi Arabia. Now, you're kind of like, what's over there? What's so special about this place? And honestly, it's only where basically there is another Orchis facility. Remember, Orchis is an organization right now in Marvel Comics that wants to get rid of the X-Men. Now, with all that being said, you do have Nightcrawler being able to actually arrive at the Orchis base to find out that basically at this base, they found the body of Legion and they kind of took out his brain and got rid of his body. And so the only thing left is his brain. But here's the problem though. Remember, Legion is basically a character who has different personalities. And so all those personalities are in that brain. And of course, right now they're kind of going a tad bit crazy because of what Orchis tried to do to Legion. They tried to do some experiments on the body of Legion. Now, with all that being said, when it comes to Pixie, Pixie is also another character that was really close to Blindfold, the dead mutant that basically Nightcrawler went to go visit at the graveyard site. Now, of course, Nightcrawler and Pixie, both characters were close to Blindfold, but on top of that, Legion was very close to Blindfold. And so with all that being said, it's kind of like Nightcrawler bringing Pixie here to kind of show Legion that there were other people out there who also care for Blindfold as well, because Blindfold died, and that kind of hurt Legion, but also other X-Men characters. But either way, though, it's Nightcrawler saying you're not the only one hurting over the death of Blindfold. Now, you do have Nightcrawler and Pixie basically go into the mind of Legion, while you have Dr. Nemesis kind of stay outside to monitor the computers that are basically connected to Legion's brain, the only thing left of his body. Now, this is where you kind of have Legion kind of gives an idea that there is a lot going on right now with this book, with the idea of how in the world did Orchis get their hand on Legion? Because when it comes to Legion, basically he's a character who's really powerful and cannot be really grabbed that easily. Definitely by humans. But of course, somehow they were able to get him. But also you have Legion say that when it came to his powers, he made sure to basically erase himself from the universe so that the world can forget about him. He basically made the entire world kind of erase or forget about him in this timeline. And so the question is now, how did Orchis was able to actually get their hands on Legion? Because if he did that to kind of get away from everybody, that means somehow in some way Orchis was able to grab Legion and basically take his brain and begin to work on his brain. Now to Legion, there is a bunch of different possibilities, like clones or an alternate universe. But again, how did Orchis get Legion? Now, while in the mind of Legion, you have Nightcrawler and Pixie realize that basically what Orchis did was they kind of used Legion's mind to simulate how to bring down COPPA. Because remember, Orchis wants to get rid of COPPA. And so they have been trying different ways to kind of get rid of COPPA. And so they use Legion's mind as a way to kind of basically simulate how can they bring down COPPA? How can they get rid of the X-Men race? But while you have Nightcrawler and Pixie in the mind of Legion, this also leads into another problem. Now, of course, this leads into the idea that Nightcrawler has to kill Legion off. And the reason why, because when it comes to Legion, while you had Orchis actually working on the mind of Legion, it was constantly sending out feedback energy that could technically do a lot of damage. And so with that being said, the next feedback is going to cause a lot of damage, possibly to the Earth or to the universe. And so of course it's Nightcrawler saying, I have to basically kill the brain of Legion, because if I don't do that, then of course that means there could be a lot of damage down the road. And so of course you do have Nightcrawler pull out a gun out that was really Dr. Nemesis' gun, and he basically kills off Legion. Now, you do have the X-Men being able to bring back Legion. I almost called the wrong name, but they're able to bring back Legion. Now, when they do bring back Legion, of course, you have Legion right off the bat kind of happy to see his dad, but not really. Like, hey, dad, it's nice to see you and all, but hey, I still don't like you. Because you have to remember, when it comes to Charles Xavier and Legion, their relationship is completely a mess. That basically Charles Xavier is not going to win the Father of the Year award when it comes to his kids. Yes, I said kids because he has more than one kid. He has two. He has Legion and Xandra. I think that's her name, the girl out in space right now. He had with Ileandra. But either way, though, basically right now, you have Charles Xavier kind of happy to see his son, but his son say, listen, I came back. It's good to see you, but I don't trust you. I don't trust you, and I don't trust Magneto. Because you do have Magneto try to recruit Legion for a big task that takes on every single Omega level mutant to work together. But of course, you have Legion say, no, I don't trust you, and so with that, I'm not going to help you. I only came back to life to work with Nightcrawler, because Nightcrawler is a guy I can trust. On top of that, you have Legion point out that Charles Xavier and Magneto are both hiding something. They have a secret, and of course, they have a lot of secrets. Now, of course, this is Legion kind of hinting that Charles Xavier and Magneto, they're hiding Moira McTaggart, which of course we already knew that, but Legion is now saying, I kind of know about that secret as well. And other people are wondering a tad bit more about what secrets you guys are hiding. And so, of course, it's kind of Legion saying, you better not tick me off because, hey, those secrets could possibly come out to hurt you. But it's also Legion saying, hey, listen. Right now I have a new brain, a new body. So the other voices to my other personalities, they're locked away for the time being, but those will come back very soon. And when they do, that could cause problems down the road. But for now, we're in the clear. Now, the way Way of X #2 ends, it actually ends on a high note. And what I mean by that is basically you have Legion talk to Kurt about the idea that there's a lot going on this island, politics, religion, all that different stuff. But of course, you have Legion bring up the Patchwork Man once again. And of course, the Patchwork Man is not Legion, it's somebody else. The question is though, who? Who is the Patchwork Man? That is the big question. And so, of course, you have Legion say, hey, he's back. Onslaught is back. And that right there is huge, because if Onslaught is back, that could cause a lot of problems for the X-Men down the road. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.